"No one loves me," whispered 6-year-old Arthur Labinjo-Hughes, his voice barely audible in a haunting video recorded days before his death. What followed would reveal a harrowing tale of cruelty, deception, and systemic failure, a story that broke the nation's heart. Arthur Labinjo-Hughes, born in January 4, 2014, to Olivia Labinjo-Hughes and Thomas Hughes. The two separated shortly before his second birthday. Both Arthur's parents shared custody of him while he lived with his mother. In February 2019, Labinjo-Hughes stabbed her new partner, Gary Cunningham, to death after a period of mutual domestic violence. This led to Thomas Hughes becoming Arthur's sole career. Arthur changed schools to Dickens Heath Community Primary School and moved into an annex behind his paternal grandparents' home with his father. According to his grandmother, Arthur was initially nervous but quickly became a happy, well-rounded child. In August 2019, Thomas Hughes met Emma Tustin on the dating website Plenty of Fish. Thomas Hughes introduced his son to Tustin early on in the relationship, and she later stated that she and Arthur were friends straight away. As Arthur returned to school after the summer holidays, a teaching assistant stated that she had no concerns about his well-being. However, the child's uncle noted that Thomas Hughes seemed to be becoming stricter with the boy, and Arthur appeared to be more fearful of getting into trouble. An official at Arthur's school noted that the child became less happy as autumn progressed. She organised a meeting with Arthur's father and grandmother about her concerns that the boy was developing an obsession with topics such as guns, death, and the news, along with fears about being separated from or killed by his father. There was also an incident during a school nativity play where Arthur became upset when a baby doll was removed from its crib. In early 2020, Thomas Hughes took his son to multiple medical appointments, but the boy was not diagnosed with any mental health problems. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 pandemic led to the closure of all schools in the UK and a national lockdown by the end of March 2020. At the beginning of the lockdown, Arthur and his father were staying in Tustin's home. Though Thomas Hughes' mother asked that he and Arthur come to her house, he refused, instead deciding to move in with Tustin at her home in Solihull for the duration of the lockdown. In April 2020, Thomas Hughes returned home with his son for a few days due to a disagreement with Tustin. While he was at his grandparents' house, Arthur said that he had been pinned against the wall by Tustin, called a horrible ugly brat, and his grandmother found several bruises on his back. Thomas Hughes soon returned to his partner's house and refused the grandmother's request to leave the boy at her house for longer, prompting her to report him to social services. The next day, a social worker went to visit Hughes and Tustin's household. She was told that Arthur's injuries had been sustained in a fight with Tustin's son. The social worker concluded that Arthur was very happy and very safe, and that there were no safeguarding issues in the household. Thomas Hughes said that Tustin coached the boys to lie about the incident and had warned him they would lose custody of their children if he did not cooperate as well. The incident was later reported to the police again by Arthur's uncle, with no effect. In May 2020, Arthur was frequently made to stand in the hallway for long periods of time as a punishment for his alleged misbehaviour. Tustin reported these incidents to Thomas via text messages and audio clips of him crying. In these clips, the child could be heard crying for his grandmother and uncle, and at one point said, "Nobody loves me." The couple used insults such as Satan, Hitler, Devil Child, Weasel, and various swear words to refer to the boy. Thomas Hughes would frequently threaten violence against his son. Custin said at one point to Thomas that "I want you, but I don't want him," referring to Arthur. By the end of the month, Arthur was moved out of Tustin's son and daughter's bedroom and made to sleep on the living room floor. He was made to sleep there, even when the other children slept elsewhere. When Arthur's school reopened on 8 June, he was not in attendance. Thomas Hughes was contacted by the school about the matter, but provided various excuses for the child's absence. The couple installed a camera at home to monitor Arthur during his isolation. Arthur spent 35 hours of the 3-day period between 12 and 14 June in the hallway, having been forced to go there by his father and Tustin. He was slapped by Tustin for entering the living room. The camera also recorded the couple and Tustin's children enjoying food and leisure activities which Arthur was not allowed to participate in. On 15 June, Tustin took Arthur with her to spend most of the day at her hairdresser's house. Throughout the 6 hours Tustin was there, she forced the boy to stand by the door and frequently shouted and swore at him. The child collapsed to the floor as they left the hairdresser's, but was not helped by either Tustin or Thomas when he arrived. Later that evening, Thomas belted Arthur's legs and later told Tustin to just end him. On the morning of 16 June, Arthur appeared on CCTV footage to be weak, in visible pain, and struggling to lift his bedclothes. Thomas Hughes, Tustin and Arthur went back to the hairdresser's house where Arthur was constantly shouted at by the former two. The child was secretly given a drink of water by the hairdresser's partner, who later described him as gaunt, malnourished and a poor little kid who was broken. After getting home, Tustin went upstairs at about 2 p.m. Later at trial, the prosecution argued that she gave Arthur an overdose of salt in the bathroom at around this time, though Tustin denied this. Additionally, Tustin photographed Arthur crying in the hallway at 2:15 p.m. Tustin is believed to have carried out the fatal assault at 2:29 p.m. when she went into the hallway where Arthur was located. She shook Arthur and hit his head against a hard surface multiple times. The assault is believed to have lasted 1 minute. 12 minutes later, after phoning Thomas Hughes, Tustin called 999 and told medics that he fell and banged his head, and while on the floor, banged his head another 5 times.
Taking big dark breaths. Basically, my 6-year-old stepson is fallen, he's banged his head.
Okay.
And while he was on the floor, he's banged his head another 5 times.
Okay.
He's lost colour, he's got a big lump on his head.
Awake.
Tustin then took a photo of the dying boy, which she sent to Hughes. Paramedics from West Midlands Ambulance Service and officers from West Midlands Police arrived on scene shortly after the emergency call was made. Arthur was left with an unsurvivable brain injury. Arthur was taken to Birmingham Children's Hospital. However, doctors were unable to save him and he died later that night. He was 6 years old. At the time of his death, a medical review found that he was covered in 130 bruises, that he had been poisoned with salt, and that the extent of his injuries were compared to torture. The trial that followed in 2021 revealed the horrifying details of Arthur's abuse. Tustin was found guilty of murder, and Hughes was convicted of manslaughter. Tustin received a life sentence with a minimum of 29 years, while Hughes was sentenced to 21 years. The public's grief turned to anger. How could such a brutal case slip through the cracks, especially after warnings from family members? The case prompted a nationwide review of child protection services.
Briefly, what happened?
Yes. Basically, he'd gone out to get me a birthday cake and stuff for the kids. Arthur was told to sit on the thinking step. Arthur's put himself all over the floor. He's banged himself off the radiator. He's hit me. He's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step. He's then gone on all fours on the floor, and I've told him to get up. And I shut the door over, and all I heard was a crack off the floor. He was headbutting the floor on all fours. Headbutted the floor once. Said, "Arthur, get up. You're going to hurt yourself. I've phoned your dad." He went, "I don't care." At that point, he was fine. And then he dropped his head again as I've tried to bear hug him and pick him up, and he headbutted the floor 3 times.
Here on this carpet?
Round about, the door was shut, so if you go in, I'll show you. It's probably about here his head was, but it's concrete, there's no underlay under that. He's battered his dad, he's hit me. When I tried to get him off the floor from headbutting the floor, he headbutted me, and he kicked me and he's hit me. Yesterday we went to my friend's house, and he pushed me down 5 stairs. "You're not my real mum, I hate you. I'm going to get my mum to kill you," he said. And even so, I've done my best for that kid. I tried to get him off the floor.